What's going on, everybody? My name is NW97 and welcome to another Destiny video. Today we're going to continue with our series with raid weapons. Are they good? Are they bad? And can they be better? So, last week we finished the Vault of Glass raid weapons. So now we're gonna start off with Crota Zen, specifically the heavy weapons. So, let's get started, and we'll first start off with the Fang of Ur-Yut. And here's the thing though. Like an idiot, I have deleted the Fang of Ur-Yut before making this video because of its state of the weapon. So, for this video, we're going to pretend the Oversoul Edict, the pulse rifle for the Crota Zen raid, will be the Fang of Ur-Yut, specifically for one of its perks. So anyway, we're going to start with the Fang of Ur-Yut, but do not worry guys, I have the stats right here in my laptop, and so I'm going to read out the perks and what's so special about it. Okay, so first off, the Fang of Ur-Yut. This is a weapon that has an archetype of 100% rate of fire, 25 impact, range of 10, stability of 30, and reload of 48. Honestly, first we're going to start off is I am not a big fan of this archetype. This is the highest archetype of rate of fire and the lowest of impact. So that's one for me saying that, okay, this doesn't do enough damage, but it shoots extremely fast. Which is basically a bullet holes archetype for a machine gun. Some people like it. Personally, I do not. There are very few high rate of fire machine guns that I actually do like. This weapon has a magazine of 87, which is pretty high considering its archetype. Okay, so first off, this is a weapon that has arc damage, which is actually pretty interesting because most Hive enemies do not have arc on their do not have arc shields, except for like the knight on the epic perk where you get more shields. Um, the first perks that you have on the tree is Grenadier. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We're gonna look at the ballistics here. So the first ballistics, we have Accurized Ballistics, more range and impact increased the recoil. Smart Drift Control, predictable and controllable recoil, penalty to range. And last but certainly not least, Aggressive Ballistics, one of my favorites. More predictable recoil, enhanced impact, shorter range, and more recoil. Out of all of these, I would say Aggressive Ballistics is probably the best option for damage. But for the rest of the stats, I would say Smart Drift Control is your best option. So either use Aggressive Ballistics or Smart Drift Control. Honestly, you would want to use this weapon for PvE specifically, so you should use Aggressive Ballistics. Okay, so give me a second, guys. For the selectable perks on tree number 1, you have Hammer Forged, Flared Magwell, and High Caliber Rounds. Probably the best option for this weapon is High Caliber Rounds, specifically because high caliber rounds are best for stunning enemies. So if you're going against a Hive Boomer Knight, and he's just doing a whole bunch of boomers, fire at you, then high caliber rounds is going to be a very good option. In fact, this entire weapon is actually made to go against Hive Knights, which is pretty interesting how it works out. So really, the only option here is high caliber rounds, and it's actually a good perk to use with this part of like archetype. Really, this weapon is made for taking on Hive Knights. Okay, I forget to mention that every raid weapon from Crota Zen has Hive Disruptor, which basically increases damage against Hive Majors, which is really good against Hive Knights, like I said before, especially if they're Majors. So basically, if you want to kill Hive Knights, then that is the weapon of your choice. Other than that, it's pretty sucky. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the rest of the perks. The rest of the perks on this weapon is Grenadier. Kill. That's one of its main perks. Kills with this weapon reduce the cooldown of your grenade. So just to visualize, like this part would be like the aggressive ballistics, smart drift control. This part would be like high like caliber rounds, etc. on this. And then the first perk here would be Grenadier on um, the machine gun, the Fang of Uryut, which is actually pretty good overall with like any weapon. Kills with this weapon reduce the cooldown of your grenade, which is really good. And then for the second perk, we have Darkbreaker, which is actually the exact same perk for Oversoul Edict, which we're going to talk about as we continue on the series. So this specifically, this perk, what it does is that it prototypes will overpenetrate through Hive Knight Wall of Darkness. This is an ability that the Hive Knights have. If they have a certain amount of damage dealt upon them, then they're going to go ahead and activate a wall that is impenetrable for a lot of, weaponry inside the game, with the exception of Oversoul Edict and Fang of Uryut. This is actually an okay perk for Crota, but I actually don't like it on the Fang of Uryut, which I'm going to explain later in the video. Um, okay, so is it good? Is it bad? And can it be better? I'm gonna say this is a solid bad weapon. But NW Hunt, why do you say it's a bad weapon? You said that it's really good against Hive Knights. Yes, you are absolutely right. In fact, I would say that the Fang of Uryut is probably the best weapon to use against Hive Knights. But that's it. That's the only use that you have with Oversoul Edict. If you are specifically fighting an army of Hive Knights, then that is the weapon of your choice. Unfortunately, though, I have many problems with this weapon. Its rate of fire and impact are an archetype I do not like, which is one like negative for me specifically. Its perks are somewhat like the thing is, the perks are actually really good, but really bad at the same time. One, you want to have a lot of stability with this type of weapon because it has 100% rate of fire. And since this weapon has 30 stability, you have no way of increasing the stability on this weapon. In fact, you have a lot of perks that decreases the stability on Fang of Uryut, which is a pretty cruddy design for a machine gun like this. So basically, you're going to go guns blazing, and you're going to have no control of this weapon at all. Also, the range is extremely low, so you want to get into close combat with Hive Knights, which are only there are only two ranges where you're going to fight against Hive Knights. One, you're going to fight them extremely far away while they're using the boomers, and you are going to use that machine gun, which has horrible range. And two, you're going to go against Hive Knights extremely close. And since this is a high rate of fire weapon, and you're going to, and it has high caliber rounds, then it's actually really effective. So even with the Hive Knights, it's not really good against them. As long as they have like the swords or they're close to you, then it's going to be effective. So even going against Hive Knights, there's going to be some negatives there. More, and also another thing about this weapon is that specifically its perk Darkbreaker. Now, I have to admit, Darkbreaker is pretty useful against Hive Knights, and I actually like it on Oversoul Edict a lot more specifically. And I am going to talk about this much later inside the series about Oversoul Edict and why it's actually a really good weapon, especially back at year one. So, when you're shooting in Hive Knight, you're most definitely either going to use your primary or your special weapon. When that Hive Knight is going to activate your shield, you say, "Oh, I could just use Darkbreaker with Oversoul Edict and take out the shield without, him deactivating it." But the thing is, there's such a like time gap between uh, damaging the knight and using its dark wall of darkness and switching to your machine gun, and you have like the possibility of reloading the weapon and then like readying the weapon and actually aiming the weapon. Once you start firing, that wall of darkness is gonna be it's gonna be gone. Like that's gonna be the only reason why you use Oversoul Edict, because of the Wall of Darkness. Only reason that you have that's actually going to be useful is that you use that machine gun all the time. And honestly, that is a bullet. This is a bullet holes weapon. You're going to waste your ammo extremely quickly with this weapon, and that is a huge problem with this as well. So let's go through all the positives. One, it's really good against Hive Knights. That's the only positive. And plus, its perks are actually well versed around killing Hive Knights. Here's Those are the only things working with this weapon. Two, it has rate of fire and impact that I personally am not a big fan of. Its range is terrible. Its stability is terrible. Its reload is meh. Its perks are specifically made for one specific use, and that is going against Hive Knights specifically in close combat. And I'm not even explaining about the boomers with this situation. Um, if if you're using the full power of this weapon uh, towards its highest capability, you are using this weapon 100% of the time, and you're going to waste your ammo extremely fast. And once you're done with it, you're most likely going to switch to your primary, and you're going to use a lot more work with these specific primaries. And even then, while you're doing Crota Zen, Fang of Uryu is basically going to be useless for Crota Zen specifically. Honestly, the only other type of you know activity that's really good with this weapon is maybe the Obstacle Strike. That's about it. Um, so back at year one, this was actually a really good weapon for its activities mainly. For one, the Courtesan and the Omnigul Strike were like the best, were the end game back in the day. But now, since there's so many stuff about it, you won't fight the Hive as much, and you're not going to use this weapon much at all. Um, can it be better? Yes, absolutely. Basically, make it so you can have a much higher, stability perks. Brace frame is definitely could be handy for this weapon instead of having, flared magwell or hammer forged on this. Oh, huh. Who knew? Actually, it does have an increased um, range perk, but it's not a really good one. So, if you don't like high caliber rounds, you probably use hammer forged if you want that range. Yeah. Honestly, I would replace either Hammer Forge or Flared Magwell with like a good overall stability or range perk. Maybe Small Bore will help. It both increases your stability and range with a decrease of your magazine size. Which this gun could honestly, it will have no problem with it. So you can have like Small Bore on it, or you can even have Brace Frame on it. Probably you could have Small Bore or Brace Frame, which increases the stability substantially, which is extremely good. Yeah, basically have a increased stability perk, and maybe you could have counterbalance on this weapon instead of a grenadier. And honestly, that would be a lot better for this weapon. You could even have some PvP characteristics on the weapon. Okay, and honestly, I don't really like this weapon, and you probably see why I don't like this weapon is because I don't have it anymore because I deleted it. So that's my opinion of the Fang of Ryut. Now for one of my favorite heavy weapons in the game. So you could say that the Fang of Ryut is my least favorite, but the Hunger of Crota is my most favorite. Um, and these two weapons are coming from the same raid. This is the Hunger of Crota. Now, this is a pretty cool rocket launcher. This is the same archetype as the Gallahorn, which has low rate of fire, high blast radius, high velocity, and really good reload speed. I am a really big fan of this rocket. This is one of my favorites. Okay, so let's check out the perks. Well, for one, this has solar damage, which is really good for this weapon because a lot of enemies have solar shields, and two, wizards are specifically have a lot of solar shields. And this is actually really good going against wizards and all sorts of enemies. Not only for hive activities like courtesan, but also other activities as well. So first off, we have Hive Disruptor, increases damage against Hive Majors, which is really good against, Hive Wizards or Yellow Bard, which is really good. Okay, so the first perk tree we have Soft Launch, increased recoil, boosted velocity, Linear Compensator, and Aggressive Launch. Now, out of all of these, Soft Launch is probably the best option for this. Honestly, I would have yeah, honestly, Soft Launch is probably the best option here. It increases basically both velocity and blast radius, which is pretty good. And I honestly recommend you use this perk at all times. Another excellent perk that makes this weapon really is tracking. Shells fired from this weapon track their targets. This is so good against wizards because sometimes they move around, and if you're going against a Hive Major who is a wizard, then tracking is extremely useful. Um, this really um, is basically Galahorn Jr., which I'm going to show the reason why. Okay, for a second tree, you have Quick Draw, Javelin, and Heavy Payload. Javelin and Heavy Payload are always good on rocket launchers. I prefer personally use Heavy Payload because its velocity is so high. It depends on your choice on whether you want the rocket to go faster or to have a bigger explosion. I personally prefer bigger explosion because I love explosions. And last but certainly not least, you have Cluster Bomb. Rockets create cluster bombs when they detonate. So, the reason why I said this is Galahorn Jr. is because you have tracking and cluster bombs. And guess what? Galahorn has tracking and Galahorn has Wolfpack rounds, which is basically cluster bombs, but, you know, twice as better, and they actually track towards the opponent, which is extremely good. And this is why it's called Galahorn Jr. Can it now? Is this weapon good? Is it bad? And can it be better? This is good, honestly. I would give this at least a 4.0, a solid 4.0, and that's gonna be my grade for it. And can this weapon be better? Um, I think the only thing that could be better with this is the ammo reserves. Honestly, without a armor perk on your for heavy ammo, um, this weapon could only hold 5 rockets. That's it. E- Even then, I think back in year one, it used to carry 4 or something. It was a pretty low number. So, this only carried 5 rockets, which is actually disappointing. But in, um, if you have a perk that increases your ammo, that is definitely highly recommended for this weapon. Um, yeah, have a perk for your armor that gives you more rockets, so you can get more ammo. I think the maximum you can get is 6, which is pretty low, if you have the armor perks done correctly. And usually you have 6 rockets with any rocket launcher without any armor perks, which is pretty disappointing. That's like the only bad thing I could think of this rocket launcher. So basically, would make it better, have a higher magazine reserve, maybe have like 5 because this is such a good weapon. And then once you can have your armor perks, then you can have it up to 7, which is pretty good. In the perfect world, I would say this would have 8, but that's probably a bit too powerful, honestly. So yeah, basically have it so they can have a higher ammo count with this weapon. Yeah. That is it, guys. That is the end of the video. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to make another video, but I'm not going to upload it with this video specifically, but I'm going to upload it in Tuesday or Wednesday. Most likely Tuesday, honestly. More specifically, I'll show you it for a good reason, honestly. Okay, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And comment below on what's your favorite weapon from Crota specifically. We already seen the heavy weapons of Crota. Okay, guys, thank you guys for watching. I also want to tell you to check out my Facebook fan page. It's called NW Hunt 97 Gaming Community. I highly recommend you check it out. This is exclusive content no one see anywhere else besides Facebook. You can't even see this content on YouTube. And I think you'll appreciate the video that's going to be uploaded to Facebook because it involves this little weapon right here. And that's the only thing I'm going to say about it. Okay, guys, thank you guys for watching, and God bless. Goodbye, and I'll see you in Facebook.